In this part, I'm going to talk about Arsenal's summer so far. It's been very quiet, and I think Mikel Arteta and Edu have a plan that is clear to them, and they've said this several times. It sounds like they're looking to add a bit more quality and experience this summer in terms of their major signings. Doesn't mean they won't sign young players. Doesn't mean they won't, take an opportunity to improve on squad players. But what I'm kind of reading, based on some of the people that I listen to about Arsenal, Charles Schwartz, David Ornstein, and a lot of other people coming out of Italy have said a thing or two about Victor Osimhen. That's the name that's come out of Italy. And then the left back, that one I'm not sure about actually. Federico, forget his last name, but he plays for, he's got tinted hair or blonde hair, bleach blonde hair, plays for Inter Milan. I'm not sure about that one, but links with Aaron Hickey again are coming up, the young kid from Scotland who plays for Bologna. We'll see. The one thing that I've heard that sounds believable and makes more sense as far as like left back / midfield is a Zinchenko one. Now the Zinchenko possibility, if Arsenal can pull that off, that will be just as important as the striker. Because Zinchenko, in my opinion, who has actually played most of his career as a midfielder, plays there for the Ukraine. He developed at City as well in his, before he made consistent first team appearances. He actually broke in as a midfielder. And then, when that old man, what's his name? Pellegrini, he would be, listed as a midfielder in the City teams and whatnot, even played a few games up there. But Pep doing Pep things, and Pep is a very smart football man, so I'm not going to question his ideas and whatnot. And the boy plays really well. He tucks in, and he has the pace to overlap if he needs to, and he can also underlap. He's a very clever footballer, neat footballer, on par with what we have at Arsenal, in my opinion. I think he would fit really well at Arsenal as a potential competitor with Xhaka or whoever else plays the left 8 position. I would hope that is cheaper than some of the other names I've heard. If Tillemans or maybe Neves are too expensive, I would obviously want those two guys ahead of Zinchenko. But I think Zinchenko could be an underrated steal because he can also cover at left back. Because Kieran Tierney, as we know, he's missed so many Arsenal games since he's been at Arsenal. He has missed almost half the games since he's joined Arsenal. There's a stat by Albinho. I think he's missed about 44%, or he's played 56% of the games, which basically, whichever way that statistic goes, 44% games missed is almost half of the entire time he's been at Arsenal. It's not just one season. And one of the reasons I think Arsenal fell short this season is because him, Tomiyasu, and Thomas Partey, they played similar minutes to these 3 players: Nuno Tavares, Cedric, and Sambi Lokonga. Give or take a game here and there. You can't have a successful season as Arsenal if you have similar minutes between your first choice at at right back, left back, and center mid, and then your second choice. You can't have them kind of like almost go splitsies on the minutes. It has to be a 10-game swing in the direction of your first choice. But if Kieran Tierney continues to be Kieran Tierney, then I think this guy, Zinchenko, would be a good player to have in the Arsenal squad. Now, up front, there's talk of Gabriel Jesus, lots of strong talk around him. I like the player. I think you get him, you're good. because he can play anywhere across the front three. Problem with him for me is that in size and ability, he's not too different to some of the players we have who could fill in there. You know, Eddie, he's probably more experienced than Eddie. I don't know how much better he is as a finisher. I think he's a bit better as a complete all-round footballer than Eddie, but as a out-and-out finisher, you know, it's hard to tell because we don't really know enough about Eddie Nketiah yet to make, you know, sound judgments of what he can and cannot do. I know a lot of people say he played 20 plus games, but a lot of those games he was playing garbage minutes. If you think about it, he played so many, you know, he, for me, is one player that's hard to judge on this last season. And yes, he did score only in 3 games in those last 7 games or 8 games he played, but from the start, you can look at those 8 starts and say he scored 5 goals. And then in the Carabao Cup also, where he started 5 games, he also scored 5 goals. So Eddie is one of those harder ones to kind of like legislate for in terms of what you can expect from him. And as a result, then I would like to see someone like a Richarlison or Rafael Leao if AC Milan would listen to offers. He's a young 21, 22-year-old player who's big and can be a bit of a target man. Calvert-Lewin I would love, but because of the injuries he's had this last season, that would be my main hesitation with him. But Richarlison stays fit most of the time. I think he would be a great fit at Arsenal. He could play in the middle, could play, you know, on different sides. He can really get rough and tumble with the best of the centre backs in the Premier League. He's got size. It gives you similar to what Jesus gives you in terms of work rate, but he also gives you size, which is important in the English game. He can score goals. He's relentless. He's as feisty as they come. I like that kid. The other player, Rafael Leao, is a similar type of build to Richarlison, but Milan just won the league, so I don't know. You know, maybe they might be feeling themselves and maybe wanting to release him, and I don't know. I don't think they will. Like, he's too good. But those are the kinds of things I would look to do if I was Arsenal. Like, I would shop in that market. Victor Osimhen would be wonderful, but I think the price would be also quite high. If Arsenal were trying to get Osimhen, that would be quite high. 2 more things on the incomings. I mean, these aren't incomings. It's just Elneny signed a new contract, which I think for me is a no-brainer. I think in the world where you have a player that can come, that's already understanding of your system, he fits a number of different things. He's cheap. He knows your system. You can plug him and play him anywhere, and he will give you exactly whatever you put in the game plan. He has his limitations for sure, but at that price, I think Elneny is to me a no-brainer. And you know, he's a good guy for the locker room, which is a very underrated thing and quality in terms of like the players who don't play sometimes in football, which is very, very fair. Most of the guys who make it to that level are gifted, and they have belief in themselves that, you know, I should play. I mean, hell, the next guy that's almost signed or that's about to sign, Eddie, is a good example of this. A lot of footballers, exhibit the kind of behavior that Eddie was exhibiting in the last year or so, where he was like, play me or I'm gone. Elneny is not kicking up a fuss. He's not a terrible player. He's not a great player. You need sometimes guys who can just give you, you know, a guaranteed 6, 6.5 to 7 out of 10 on certain days, especially if you're going to be blooding in a lot of youngsters in the Europa League and backing up your squad with young players. He's a good senior pro, really hardworking, good example for young pros who are more talented than him, possibly, to learn about the job with Elneny in the, you know, in the locker room, in the training ground, around the place. His work ethic is second to none. Runs hard for the team. I think that's it. That if you want to instill those kinds of things, you want to have players outside of the, you know, the top tier, kind of like most talented ones. Of course, it helps if your most talented players do it, but you do need workmen and blue collar guys like Elneny in every change room. So that one for me, no brainer. The next one is a little bit tricky. It's the Eddie one. I think I was in the minority in the beginning. I think more and more people have come around to him. But I've wanted him to stay because we didn't know enough about what he can and cannot do for the club. I still want him to stay. The numbers, they make sense if you're looking at them globally. You don't have to pay a transfer fee for him, and the cost to you is about £31 million over a period of 5 years. If you divide that, it's like £6 million roughly for a player you didn't have to pay a transfer fee for. £6 million per year for that player. And it probably includes bonuses. I don't think if it's even, I don't know how much of it is guaranteed money. I'm sure Arsenal has some incentives in there where you earn 100 if you do this. And actually, let me not say I'm sure. I suspect that that's what Arsenal will have done. We can never be sure with these things. But those figures to me are not scary. One thing I'll say though is that strikers are expensive. You see what clubs previously have paid for strikers in England, and you're not guaranteed success with strikers. Eddie is a known quantity. I mean, just think of Lacazette, for example. You're not guaranteed goals. Eddie is giving you exactly what Lacazette has given you, and sometimes more in this last season. If you think about ratios of minutes per goal, and he's only just turned 23 today. So with that in mind, I think that one is not a terrible deal. The only thing I worry about is that if Eddie doesn't play himself into being a £100,000 player, if he doesn't play himself into being a player that's worth £100,000 a week, it becomes harder to move him. It doesn't become impossible because there's always a market for strikers, but it becomes harder to move him if you want to move him. So this one is going to be a beautiful one to watch because I think there's a lot of talent in there. There's a player in there. We just can't tell how much he's worth. So Arsenal are taking a punt like they did last year with with players like Sambi and maybe Nuno even. But I think this one is probably based on things that they know from what they see on him, in terms of like his statistics, and they're probably making a projection saying over the next 3 to 5 years, this guy could be worth something to the team or worth something in the market instead of losing him for free. I hope they are right in their projections, and I don't have any reasons not to trust them. They have shown themselves to be quite knowledgeable a little bit this last year in terms of the transfer business they've done. You can argue about maybe the speculative moves they made for Sambi and Nuno if you want to. I'm not inclined to argue about those moves because I can actually see that they were already starting to buy players to layer up, to buy the next layer of talent that they can get to back up their first choices. And I think they did a decent job with both of those players. So with the Arsenal incomings, it looks kind of quiet, but it looks like they have a plan, and they've shown their hand a little bit. Hopefully they're able to finish things pretty quickly before they come to the US in July, because by then it's going to be quite late and you need your players for preseason to be there, especially with a season that's going to be quite congested with the World Cup and several other things that may happen between the beginning of the season and the World Cup. Who knows what's going to be happening. Anyway, so hopefully they're able to do what they need to do to have everything in place beginning of July. But I don't know. We can't never know. But I'm going to stop there. I hope that you guys are having a good weekend and going into your summer, that you can hopefully enjoy it. Enjoy the lack of stress from game days, even though I think we will all miss game days. I think summers have a different kind of pace to it, and so I will be releasing episodes throughout the summer, but I will do about one a week for sure, and then when possible I'll do a second one, but I won't go too long without releasing because I would like to just keep a check on things, but I don't feel like I'll be able to do, transfer rumors and things like that day to day to day. I'm new to this thing. I'm trying to see, and figure out what the pacing could look like for me in the summer. And if you guys have any suggestions, please write them in the comments. If you have suggestions for topics, if you like what I'm putting out, please subscribe, share with friends, and that sort of thing. I'm not the hottest of the hot takes veterans out there. I just talk about the club and I talk about the game and overall, to be quite honest, because I like talking about football. But for those of you who do tune in, whether it's 5 of you or 150 of you or however many, because it varies from episode to episode, I appreciate the support, and I hope you guys are all safe, and that you are taking care of yourselves and those you love. All right, peace out. Cheers.